There's a moment that sticks with me every time I watch Brief Encounter. Celia Johnson's Laura, a melancholic housewife suddenly rejuvenated by her new acquaintance, sits across the table in a train station refreshment room from Trevor Howard's Alec, a practicing doctor, a husband, and the new acquaintance in question. They've just spent the day together, growing closer after a chance encounter in which Alec plucked a piece of dust from Laura's eye. 2 more chance encounters later, Alec is going on and on about his profession, about types of coal dust, about anything and everything he loves, and Laura is entranced. Slowly, pulled in with each word she barely understands, but which Alec seems to deliver with such youth. The camera zooms. Something is happening between them. Something. The train arrives. Alec must leave. The camera pulls back out. We return to the facade of acquaintance, in which nothing, surely nothing, is pulling them together. Nothing, unless...
Shall I see you again?
It's the other platform, isn't it? You have to run. Don't bother about me. It might not do for a few minutes.
Can I see you again?
Yes, of course. Perhaps you'll come out to Ketchworth one Sunday. It's rather far, I know, but we should be delighted.
Please. Please.
What is it?
Next Thursday, the same time.
No, I couldn't possibly.
Please. I ask you most humbly.
There can no longer be a facade. The curtain has been ripped away and we must confront what both know they are feeling and yet refuse to give into. Refused, until now, to acknowledge. They just met by complete circumstance. They are both married, both have kids. Surely they cannot, will not see each other. Surely there is nothing there. And yet they both know, beneath all of those feelings, that there is. They both know they feel alive again around each other. And so Alec must ask, and Laura must answer, I'll be there. Thus, the film has stated its purpose. Love is spontaneous, uncontrollable, unbelievably powerful, and when you feel it, you can't ignore it, can't shake it, you can only accept that it's there and suddenly feel how it rejuvenates you. Rejuvenates you from your monotonous life as a housewife, a mother, a bored woman trapped within repetitive domesticity and suddenly given a lifeline to escape it. But how do you escape it, no matter how stricken by love you are? Welcome back to Tris Talks Movies, and today we're talking about one of my favorite films of all time. One of cinema's greatest romances, yet also a strong rebuke of everything romantic cinema of the era stood for. David Lean's 1945 masterpiece, written and produced by playwright Noel Coward, Brief Encounter. Originating from a play written in 1936 before being released as a film in 1945 amid a wave of post-war dramas, Brief Encounter feels less like a product of the times and more like it's an active defiance of the times. When you look through the popular romance films from 1945 and get past the ones that have stood the test of time, it doesn't take much scrolling to see example after example of the same contrived plot about a man gaining the affections of a woman, sometimes his wife, sometimes a stranger who becomes his wife, so that they can enter a peaceful, happy life of domestic bliss together. It's not surprising, really. This is 1945, after all, when women were expected to be submissive and loving housewives or else be labeled hysterical or criminals. There are certainly examples to the contrary, or that at least have more going on. Spellbound, Children of Paradise, Les Dames du Bois de Boulogne. But these mostly come from recognized auteurs, and once you get to the bulk of studio system schlock, it's clear films like these are exceptions to the rule. Likewise, Brief Encounter is hardly reminiscent of this wave of return from war to the comfort of your loving wife films. Instead, it seems determined to be anything but.
Forgive me.
Forgive you for what?
For everything. For meeting you in the first place. For taking the piece of grit out of your eye. For loving you. For bringing you so much misery.
I'll forgive you if you'll forgive me.
Encased within the shell of capital C classic filmmaking is a story not out of place in modern-day love stories. Laura, our complex, thoughtful, emotive, judgmental, beautiful, powerful female lead, must grapple with deep internal conflict between sudden, spontaneous, true love and her duties as a housewife. On the surface, it seems perfectly of the era with the housewife trope, but the approach to this trope is much more subversive than participatory. Being a housewife is more an obstacle to true love than something Laura is genuinely being disciplined by. Her husband isn't evil. He's just a normal, everyday husband who is generally reflective of most normal, everyday husbands of the time. They don't hate each other, and yet being a housewife is also never painted as a good and noble thing. It's simply a fact of life, as it was and is for many women. And it serves as the central obstacle to what the film frames as the good and romantic alternative, her newfound love with Alec. In this way, domesticity isn't something the characters are working towards, but something they're working away from, something to escape. Our main character is a housewife who is tired, who is bored, who is melancholic from spending her days in an emotionless haze, performing her duties and coming home to a relationship that is just fine. That might as well be nothing. It might as well mean nothing were it not for her wedding vows and the responsibility of raising their children. But that isn't happiness, is it? Happiness is the feeling she has around Alec, the smile he gives her, the fear he gives her, because she knows she feels what he feels, and she knows it goes against everything society has taught her. The story of Brief Encounter isn't just about spontaneous love, but love versus society, versus expectation, versus the culture of housewife domesticity. Laura wants to be free from it, yet she knows the forces she fights against are powerful, and Alec knows it too. And thus their entire romance is carried out with the almost haunting background presence of their lives at home, and the knowledge that this can't last.
I must go home now. I really must go home.
In all of these ways, Brief Encounter tells a much more complex romance story than many popular films of the era. It's a black and white film that avoids the black and white. Marriage isn't evil, but it grows monotonous and loveless for Laura. It sits in a gray area, more like limbo than hell, more like reality than fiction. Take this scene in which Laura begins privately narrating the story of her and Alec's relationship to her husband. She narrates in her head. He can't hear a word of it, and so we are fixed within her mind, her perspective, her train of thought, her stream of conscience, as she tells her story.
You see, we're a happily married couple, and must never forget that. This is my home. You're my husband, and my children are upstairs in bed. I'm a happily married woman. Or rather, I was until a few weeks ago. This is my whole world, and it's enough. Or rather, it was until a few weeks ago. But oh, Fred, I've been so foolish. I've fallen in love. I'm an ordinary woman. I didn't think such violent things could happen to ordinary people.
Laura, in this moment, seems almost to be reminding herself that she is happily married, trying to reinstate the facade she lived in before that scene with Alec in the refreshment room. Her mind, her narration, her story is in constant opposition with the illusion of happiness that she has transfixed on herself for the last many years of her life. I'm a happily married woman, or rather I was, until a few weeks ago. The battle wages on. Was she ever happy, or was she just convinced she was until her chance encounter? Again, we sit in a gray area alongside Laura. What's real and false, what's black and white, what's good and evil, is constantly in question throughout the duration of the film. It is 86 minutes of questions and illusions, an illusion that so many romantic films of the era encourage, exist in, and never once acknowledge. Brief Encounter refuses to accept such things and thus exists entirely on the edge of this limbo. There is one scene, though, that I have to bring up. One scene that shatters this illusion and allows us a brief glimpse into what's real, into what Laura has been feeling for a long, long time. She's in the refreshment room. She has just seen Alec for the final time, and interrupted by a chatty acquaintance, she did not get to give a proper goodbye. His train has left, another train is approaching, an express train. It won't stop at the platform. Laura hears it coming and, well, I'll let you watch.
Trembling right on the edge. But I couldn't. I wasn't brave enough. I should like to be able to say that it was the thought of you and the children that prevented me, but it wasn't. I had no thoughts at all. Only an overwhelming desire not to feel anything ever again. Not to be unhappy anymore. I turned and went back into the refreshment room. That's when I nearly fainted.
As David Lean's Dutch angle slowly works its way into the scene, into Laura's remembrance, into her psyche, the facade breaks. For a wordless minute, we see the truth. Laura has been feeling empty for a long, long time, from long before she first met Alec, from long before she saw him off. He simply shattered the illusion and let her feel again. The thought of having to go back to the illusion, well, it nearly broke her. But she had to reel herself in. She had to put up the blinders. She had to accept her emptiness once more. Only then can we experience the final line of the film.
You've been a long way away. Thank you for coming back to me.
We re-enter the facade with Laura. Her life back with Fred, with her kids. And it's important here that it isn't Laura who speaks the final lines. It isn't Laura who determines how she's feeling. It is Laura who accepts Fred's words, accepts how he says she's been feeling, accepts his embrace while not being able to look into his eyes. And as they hug and as she cries, we fade into darkness before one final shot of the train station with no trains left in sight. Alec is gone. Her love is gone. Perhaps Laura herself is gone, and we will never see that train pull into the station again. It was only, after all, a brief encounter.
Oh, no, Alec, not here. Someone will see.
I love you so.
You think we might have that down a bit, darling? Hi, Laura.
Yes, dear?
You were miles away.
Was I? Yes, I suppose I was.
Do you mind if we turn that down a little? It really is deafening.
Of course not.
You'd be hard-pressed to find another film from, again, 1945 that so strongly, so hauntingly portrays the trap of domesticity and refuses to romanticize it. As I said before, there are more than a few stories about learning to love your husband and growing closer and having a happy, loving marriage as the ideal, perfect, happy end goal. So it sticks out when you have a film that frames an ending in which the marriage prevails as a tragedy. It makes for a story that feels so real compared to what one might expect going in. A story that refuses to send the message that marriage is the answer. A story that refuses to be like so many other romantic films of the time. We see what real love can look like, and we see what can be the biggest obstacle in its way. Not class, not occupation, not distance, but a loveless marriage where your feelings are secondary to duty. It's almost startling to see such a strong Rebuke come out of the 40s, but it also makes for one of the greatest, most tragic love stories to ever grace cinema. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like or subscribe. Let me know what you thought. Leave your comments and feedback. It really does help out, and I really appreciate it. And let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. This is a bit more review, essay, retrospective. I'm trying to strike a balance between more retrospective videos and videos commenting on the current state of the industry. So let me know what sounds cool to you, what excites you, what you might want to see, ideas you might have. Anything is helpful. And thank you again for watching, and I'm going to shut up now.